everybody! Today we are doing something very fun that I like to call literary review slash summary slash talking about books. But to keep it short and simple, literary analysis. As you may have guessed, and the title suggests, we are going to get lit and then talk about some literature. Now if you give me a moment, it's time for me to get lit. Okay, so I'm pretty good. I'm gonna read this and then we'll start the analysis because I'd like to refresh my mind. So, one moment please. Okay, so I'm going to keep this with me because, as you could tell, I smoked a little more. So, in case you're wondering, what I titled this literary analysis that I did a couple years ago was The Melancholic Enlightenment of William Stoner. I say this because this book is extremely bittersweet. Well, at least that's how I took it. Some people just find this book to be extremely depressing, very down with nothing positive to take from it, and I can totally understand that. But this is my take. This is just my take, and I would actually love to hear in the comments below what you guys think of this book if you've read it. If you haven't read it, and you do end up reading it, please come back and tell me what you think, because I will read it. But anyways, I find this to be a very melancholic book. I do think there is some sweetness to the bitterness of the life of William Stoner, who was raised by two very stoic farm parents in the farmland. Okay, this is the past. I'm trying my best not to look at the literary analysis that I wrote, and I'm just trying to tell you off the top of my head, okay? In case anybody was wondering, this is just an off the top of your head kind of, review. So anyways, from what I remember and my little refreshment, William Stoner, son of two stoic farm people. He grows up, his parents are like, yo, get out of here, go to school. And he goes to school for agriculture. But the thing is, he discovers that that's not what he wants to do. William Stoner, through the help and guidance and what some would call influence of one of his professors, he changes his major and he pursues becoming an English teacher. In fact, he becomes an English professor at the college that he went to. Mediocrity is the middle name of William Stoner, metaphorically speaking, of course. Literally, I don't think he has a middle name. But William Stoner lives a very mediocre life. He works at the college for so long just to never get to the head of the English department. One of his other colleagues surpasses him, I think a younger colleague, who ends up being a dick. If I recall correctly, this dude, who seems like a friend at first, ends up being a huge dick later on in the book. Take my word for it. I'm almost 100% sure. I just don't remember his name. But anyways, William Stoner has a mediocre career. I wouldn't call his career mediocre. Being a professor, being an educator, I think is noble work. Hell, I want to do that. But the point is that he doesn't really go anywhere with his career. He teaches the same classes at one point after pissing off his little asshole colleague, and he ends up teaching the same entry basic English courses for most of his career. He doesn't get to teach almost any of the higher level ones. It sucks, if I remember correctly. It sucks. His marriage is mediocre at best. His wife was a huge you know, what word I want to say. She was a nasty woman. She was a nasty person. She was horrible to him. She wasn't even a good mom. She was so mean to their kid. Like, she wanted nothing to do with the kid. Which, I guess, though, back in the day, that could have been, like, postpartum depression. But because of who she was before and after all of that, I'm going to go ahead and say that she was just a plain old regular bitch. Anyways, mediocre, you know, everything. But I think if you look a little deeper, there is some heroicness to William Stoner. You have to think of it like this. During this time, it's the early 1900s. This is World Wars era, okay? Because while William Stoner is in college, a lot of the boys get drafted or sign up to go fight in the war. And I believe it's World War II, but it might be World War I, so don't, like, take my word for it. But William Stoner doesn't go because he wants to pursue his education. And he sees the effect of war. Not in the typical sense that we are used to from the soldier's perspective, but from an average person. He sees his friends and classmates go off to war and doesn't see, you know, quite a few of them return. One of his good friends doesn't return, you know. He sees that. He is by no means stupid. He's just very timid, and he takes what life gives him. I guess that's as simply as I can put it. William Stoner is a character who just takes what life gives him and doesn't fight back and doesn't try to change things and doesn't try to, you know, fight very often. There are some notable instances where he does do this. The biggest one, and the only one I can recall right now, is him changing courses in college, changing his major, going against his parents' wishes, going against, I mean, basically his destiny, you could say. You know, even nowadays, I want to say up until fairly recently, but even nowadays, there's, you know, some families where they've been doing the same thing for a long time. You do what your dad did. You do what your mom did. You pick up the skills of your family and you carry on that business or that trade. And that, especially in the past, was a huge thing. So for William Stoner to go to college, and yes, it was at the advice and suggestion of his professor, but some of us need guidance, and he very could have easily said, no, I think I'm going to stick to agriculture. He didn't, because he did have a love for English and literature, and he changed courses because he had to. He felt that need, and he had a little push from a mentor who saw that in him. And I think that that is definitely a huge show of heroicism. Sorry. I personally think that's a huge show of heroicism. Although it is a bit depressing, William Stoner is an example of persistence and perseverance. No matter what life throws at him, he doesn't give up. He is a hardworking professor. He is a good husband for the most part. He does cheat on his wife once, I believe. He has like a little side thing for a second. But that doesn't even pan out. And his wife is so horrible to him. Trust me, if you read the book or read the book, you do not care when he cheats on his wife. It's also worth noting that Stoner is a survivor. You have to remember, this is a different time period. You know, a lot of people lived lives they did not want to live, that were completely unhappy, in unhappy marriages, with children they may have not wanted, in marriages they may have not wanted, with jobs they most likely did not want. William Stoner succumbed to a lot of things in life, but he did manage to stay content despite it, despite all those things that, you know, he had to succumb to. He also chose the career for him. It may have been, you know, mediocre in the eyes of the reader, but for William Stoner, he chose a career that he wanted to, that he had a passion for, that he put his heart and soul into until the day that he died. And all he gets out of it in the end is, I think, his book is published in the library. He doesn't get the library named after him. He doesn't get a wing of the school. Did you hear that? Anyways, he doesn't get the library named after him. He doesn't get a wing of the school named after him. Anything big like that, even after a lifetime of dedication. But he gets his book that he worked so hard on published in the library. And it mentions that nobody really reads this book. It's just sitting there. But I'm sure that if William Stoner had been alive to see that, he wouldn't have cared about the absence of readers, because he got his dream. His book was published. And who knows? Sometimes it takes a bit of time for a writer to kick off, as we've seen so often in history. So I like to think maybe in some reality William Stoner becomes one of those authors, and maybe his work has a cult following 100 years later. I am honestly pretty baked and I don't know how much more of this review I can do without totally rambling. So I think that was a pretty good way to wrap it up. How about this? I'll read you the conclusion of my essay to wrap it up, okay? In conclusion, it is very melancholy, but right as Stoner dies, he realizes that his life did in fact have worth, and that all of the questioning of himself and his worth were pointless. His life may have been small and seemingly unimportant to others, but it was important and impactful to a select few, and himself. He also realizes that he found all the happiness he needed within himself and his work. Unfortunately, he realizes this all too late, as right after he reaches this stage of enlightenment, he dies. It is a very fitting death for Stoner, despite the fact that it can seem bittersweet and even a little depressing. Stoner realized all this before he could have a chance to live life with this new perspective, and after he had already chosen to live the majority of his life just accepting the punches that life threw at him without trying to block them or fight back. If the reader can learn anything from William Stoner, let it be this: indecision is ultimately a decision in and of itself, and we need no one but ourselves to be happy. Thank you for watching this literary analysis, review, summary, talking about a book, whatever it turns into after I smoke a little bit. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you watched until the end so you could get that amazing message. And I hope that we can do some more stuff like this very soon in the future. Let me know what you think. If you read the book, let me know in the comments below. If you plan on reading the book, come back and let me know afterwards and I will read it. And if you like to get lit, you should check out this group on Facebook called Stoner's Hotbox. They also sell merchandise, and as you may have suspected from my tone and the fact that this is the end of the video, you can use my link to get a discount on some merchandise that they sell. So thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. I'm just gonna go. You know what to do. Like, subscribe, whatever, all that stuff, yada yada. Adios until next time. Bye.